And welcome back to the castle, everyone. This is Nightsaber Z42, and this is part 5 of 8 Petals Argent, a solo adventure using the D&D 5e rule set. I play the role of Monterey, a halfling barbarian who previously left Waterdeep to try his luck at being an adventurer. When that didn't pan out, he returned back home to find that his friends had some sort of a plan to get rich pretty quick. Previously, Monterey continues his aimless wanderings, but on chance of luck, he manages to make progress, collecting tools and keys that help him towards his goal, until he comes across a pack of rats that swarm his little bodies. Alright, so let's see here. I never did explain exactly how I do initiative here. I always roll for Monterey first, and then I roll whichever monster he is fighting. So in the previous fights, I've always rolled initiative with Monterey first, and then I would roll his monster friends, and I just basically do a straight d20 and add whatever dex modifier for the monsters. So for instance, as I roll on his character sheet, he rolled a 15, and the diseased rat swarm rolled a 13. So we take initiative, which means we do get to go first. Unfortunately, these guys they look fairly tough, especially as they claw at his body. So as they begin to swarm him, Monterey is going to, well, I don't think he's going to rage. I think he's just going to take out his great axe and he's just going to go ahead and attack them. So let's see what we get. We rolled a 23. That's just one off from a crit. That's rather unfortunate. And our damage is 12. So we'll take 12 hit points away. There's 5, or actually, hold on. We're doing slashing damage, so they do have resistance to that, so we actually only do 6 damage to them. So they have 11 points of damage left. So we're in this one for the long haul. Alright, so we're going to allow the rats a chance to attack. They're going to try biting Monterey, and they will not be able to break through his 14 armor class. That's pretty good, because if they had succeeded, since they are diseased, we would have to make a Constitution saving throw. So now it's back to Monterey, and he is going to attack yet again with his great axe, dealing only 2 points of damage this time. So they are at 9 HP. We're going to let the rats have a go at it yet again. So we'll roll a d20. Yet again, they rolled a 6. They will not be able to break through Monterey's armor class, as he kind of just scrambles around trying to dodge their little nipping mouths, or as they try to jump at him, he's just kind of maneuvering around them, kind of dancing with his axe, kind of like how Gimli does in the Lord of the Rings games from way back yonder. Those are some pretty cool games, by the way. So Monterey is going to get to attack again. A 12 will hit their AC. He does 9.5, which would be 4 damage to them. So they are at 5. And these rat swarms, they have a special effect that when they are at half or fewer hit points, they do less damage. You'll still have to do the DC Constitution saving throw, but at least we'll take less damage now. The rats are going to try to bite. They're just going to relentlessly try to chase him, and a 9 will not do it. So one last time, hopefully, we'll use our great axe. That is a crit. So a 20 cut in half is 10. So we actually kill the diseased rat swarm. So as he's dodging around and twirling around with his great axe, he's smushing them, cutting them in half and whatnot, until each and every last rat is dead in just a pile of muddy or bloody goop. You destroy the last of the attacking rats. In that moment of reprieve, before more rats amass to attack, you take a moment to examine the portcullis and the door beyond. At this distance, You can see through the many holes and cracks in the door, concluding that stones and rubble fill the passage behind it. You won't have time to excavate the passage in that direction, even if you can get past the portcullis. More rats begin to accumulate, chittering at you and amassing as though to form another swarm. You decide this is the right moment to step back into the northern end of the hall out of their sight. So that's unfortunate. We are not going to be able to progress any further. So we are headed back to the north. So we're in that hallway that turns at the right angle, north to east. The northern part is 20 feet long and the eastern segment is 40 feet long. This is the area where we also examined the backpack, and this is just before the portcullis. So unfortunately, we're going to have to go back up to the north. So unfortunately, that didn't really pan out. And if I remember, this is the bell room that we are in. So our only available passage is to the west. It's the only area we have not been to yet. So we are actually going to travel due west, and we're going to see what we can find. Alright, you are in a three-way intersection. A short passage to the east leads into a square room. We have been through this. Unfortunately, we have exhausted all of our options here. I believe we've gone through the door, we've gone to the east, and we've gone to the southwest. If we go to the east, that'll bring us back into the bell room, which we do not want to go to. We're going to take a look at our notes and see which way we actually approach this from. We're going to go to the southwest area. We're just going to travel on back. The north-south passage briefly widens to 20 feet in this location, where it intersects with another passage running southwest to northeast. We have not gone south, so I think we're going to head down to the south area. You are in a long passageway with a right-angled bend in it. The northern end passes by an east-facing doorway. Water leaks from under the door, pooling in this area. A thin stream of it drains to the north. The eastern end of the passage leads to a tall archway with a large room beyond it. So we have a few options here. We can examine the door, we can go to the north, or we can go to the east. Let us start by examining the door. You examine the heavy wooden door, finding it secured by a rusty padlock. A small iron-barred window in the top of the door reveals a small rectangular room beyond. Shapes the size of bodies lie in the shadows of the room. You hear the occasional drip of water coming from within the room, accompanied by the faint odor of mildew. We can break the padlock. We cannot lockpick because we don't have any thieves' tools. We're not trained in that. So we're going to try to force the padlock. We're going to do a an athletics check. We rolled a 21. So we get to force it open. This rectangular room is 30 by 20 feet in dimension. The eastern wall seems to have suffered a structural collapse. Rubble spills across the floor of the room, and a trickle of water leaks in through the cracks in that wall. A few inches of standing water cover the floor, draining slowly out the doorway. Dark stains mar the inside of the door, patterning the shallow gouges carved there. Multiple skeletons lie dusty in various places around the room, atop various mounds of rubble. Why don't we take this opportunity to check the skeletons? Monterey is going to duck down and check what the skeletons, if there's anything useful there, or at least determine their cause of death, just in case there are traps nearby. And on a roll of a 6, he is not going to find anything. So they must have died of natural causes. Naturally, of course. So while he's at the skeletons, he is going to search their pockets for anything. Each skeleton has tattered, moldering clothes either on it or nearby. 2 weapon sheaths hang from old belts, though they hold no weapons within. Several pouches contain coins and jewelry. Oh boy, we got quite a bit of stuff here. So we get 12 copper pieces, bringing our total to 27 copper pieces. We have 9 silver pieces, bringing our total to 14. A snowflake emblem. Let's just add that to our inventory real quick. and Thongolier signet ring. The emblem hangs from a delicate iron chain of ovoid links. A close examination of the intricate shape indicates that the snowflake emblem's many protrusions may work like a key by pressing it into a matching lock. The signet ring shows the symbol of House Thongolier, a silver scrolled border on a royal blue field. You recognize the symbol as belonging to an ancient noble family with an estate in the Sea Ward. Well, we're taking all of that, so... Alright, we have examined the entirety of the room, so we are going to leave. And that brings us back to the L-shaped area. Why don't we head up to the north area? Or, not the north area, the, because that's where we came from. The east area. You are in a large room over 100 feet long and 40 feet wide. A few inches of thin fog swirl over the stone floor, moving as though pushed by some breeze you cannot feel. The north end of the room is a risen area, like a stage. Piles of bones rest at the base of the rise. Behind the stage's stone pulpit, you can see a stairway descending to the east. Above the stage, on a curved arch, are lines of red glowing runes. The rest of the room is full of pulpy lumps that might once have been wooden chairs arranged in neat rows. On the east side of the room are 5 sepulchre doors, each marked with the symbol of a different guild, alongside the snow-capped mountain symbol of House Deepwinter. You don't know what state the city's guild politics were in centuries ago when this catacomb was in use, but it seems unlikely that these powerful guilds would use this place for burial in this day and age. The first thing that we are going to do... We're going to do a thorough investigation of each of the doorways, or each of the doors, by taking 2 minutes for each door, so that's going to be 10 minutes total time that we're going to take. Before we inspect the doorway, we're going to take a look at the skeletons that are hanging about, in case there's some sort of a trap. We might get some clues from that. We rolled a 19. So it looks like we do get a little bit of some information about them. Several of these skeletons have cuts on their clavicles, as though stabbed in the neck with downward thrusts. You suspect these bodies belong to murder victims, people killed in this location. A slight discoloration on the stone beneath them might indicate blood spilled long ago. Well, at least no traps, but hopefully a murder is not coming around here. Let us inspect the chairs that are hanging about. You take time to search through the debris in this large room. Among the debris, you find a stack of vellum pages. A single piece of stone rubble sits atop the stack, as though to hold it in place. You find a rusted ink pen nearby. You have found 4 blank enduring spellbook pages, pristine despite the dust, and 1 more page filled with writing. We're going to examine the 3rd page, and Monterey begins to read the 3rd page. I will hunt again in the deep night when the day is many hours gone and the light of the street lamps has finally dimmed. It pains me to leave the vicinity of his voice, but that is not my only agony. I sorrow for the hunted, for all the candidates I tested thus far. They cannot be allowed to leave him either. They would tell lies, and though it stings to hold them, I cannot allow the authorities to find us. The hunted will be happy in his locked room until I can get through the arch. They still have food, the flesh of rats at least. They will be happy again. He kind of rolls it up and puts it back into his bag. But never said he was a good reader. All right, we're going to inspect all of these vault doors. Markings on the first door indicate that the sepulchre beyond is reserved for members of the splendid order of armorers, locksmiths, and finesmiths. An additional marking shows the symbol of House Deepwinter as a supporter of the guild. The heavy iron door represents an obviously difficult barrier. We can excavate. which I think we'll do. We're going to add 9 minutes of time. Man, I really hope we don't run out of time down here. Inside this 10 by 15 foot room, you find carved ledges along every wall. These contain dozens of linen-wrapped skeletons like those found elsewhere in the catacombs. One of the bodies bears an ornate signet ring. You examine the ring carefully, but you quickly determine that it's not the Deep Winter seal. We're just going to leave it, because I believe we're looking for the Deep Winter seal, right? So let's inspect door number 2. Markings on this door indicate that the sepulchre beyond is reserved for members of the most careful order of skilled smiths and metal forgers. An additional marking shows the symbol of House Deepwinter as a supporter of the guild. The heavy iron door presents an obviously difficult barrier. Of course, we're going to add 9 more minutes to excavate beyond. For anybody wondering, we are at 186 minutes into this, I guess, dungeon mausoleum. Inside this 10 by 15 foot room, you find carved ledges along the walls. These contain skeletons interred like those found elsewhere in these catacombs. At the back of the vault, you find a brazier piled with ancient brittle coals. Among these are tiny nuggets of various metals in odd shapes. Some of these have value. You identify 4 silver nuggets, worth 1 silver piece each, and 4 electrum nuggets, worth 5 silver pieces each. Yes. We're going to definitely take all of that. Alright, after pocketing that, we'll go back into the main room and inspect vault door number 3. Markings on this door indicate that the sepulchre beyond is reserved for members of the splendid unity of metallurgical masters and smelters, a guild you've never heard of. An additional marking shows the symbol of House Deepwinter as a supporter of the guild. We're going to use our miner's pick yet again, adding 9 more minutes to our time. Inside this 10 by 15 foot room, you find ledges carved into every wall. These shelves hold dozens of wrapped skeletons like those found elsewhere in these catacombs. There are only 5 bodies buried here. Among them, you find 5 fine quality daggers, one interred with each of the dead. We don't need daggers. I have my weapon of choice here. And he holds up his great axe. He leaves the room and he's going to inspect vault door number 4. Markings on this door indicate that the sepulchre beyond is reserved for members of the Guild of Trusted Pewterers and Casters. An additional marking shows the symbol of House Deepwinter as a supporter of the guild. The heavy iron door presents an obviously difficult barrier. It looks far sturdier than similar doors in this area. Methinks that this might be it. We're gonna excavate, spending 9 minutes to break through. The walls of this 10 by 15 foot room have carved ledges that contain dozens of linen wrapped skeletons. Aside from a few rotting tapestries, you find nothing of interest here. Really, that's rather disappointing. As we head back into the main room, we're going to inspect vault door number 5. Markings on this door indicate it is reserved for members of an unfamiliar guild called the Northern Order of Master Gem Cutters. An additional marking shows the symbol of House Deepwinter as a supporter of the guild. The heavy iron door presents an obviously difficult barrier. Of course, we're going to spend 9 minutes to excavate. Inside this 10 by 15 foot room, you find dozens of linen wrapped skeletons resting on carved ledges along every wall. Someone interred jeweler's tools with one of the skeletons. Despite the guild's impressive name, you find no gemstones here, nor anything else of interest. We're going to leave the jeweler's tools here. We have no need for it. So we can inspect the stage, or we can travel west to the north end or west to the south end. I think we're going to inspect the stage first before we leave the area. The runes over the stage read, "My blood alone may rest within. My blood alone may pass the stone," in archaic common. Near the stage, you feel a resistance that will prevent you from stepping up on the raised platform. Alright, it doesn't look like we can really do anything with the stage, so we get to decide if we want to go west to the north end or west to the south end. I believe we came in from the north end, so we are going to go to the south end. You approach the doorway, seeing that it contains a flimsy looking metal door. not the sturdy iron of the doors found elsewhere in this catacomb. The door is unlocked. A southwest leading passageway lies just beyond it. We can continue forward, which I think we're going to do, or we can turn back. This short passage extends from a westward door to the southeast, where the passage bends to the west. Two horizontal sarcophagi carved from the stone of the wall line the northern side of the passageway. We're going to spend 1 minute to explore each of these sarcophagi, so 2 minutes total. You work the stone lid off the first sarcophagus far enough to search the contents. Within is the skeleton of a small person, perhaps a gnome, and a collection of rusty old clockwork toys. We need to make an investigation check. Ooh, Monterey is not so good at investigating things. And he got an 8. So we find nothing of use here. Well, let's search sarcophagus number 2 then. The lid of this stone sarcophagus has a crack that splits it in half, making it easier for you to remove each half individually. The sarcophagus has no body within. Instead, it's filled with various seashells and smooth river stones. Let's make our perception check. Unfortunately, we do not find anything in this sarcophagus either. That's unfortunate. We can go to the west, or we can go to the northeast. Since we approached from the southwest, going northeast would take us back into the previous area. So we're actually going to travel west. This long corridor stretches from the northwest to the southeast, where it finally bends east. 7 catacombs line the walls, stacked with ancient funerary wraps. The walls in this hallway have once colorful painted murals, a decoration that seems out of place in a catacomb devoted to the burial of the poor and the homeless. Few of the murals remain sufficiently whole to decipher their contents. From what you can discern, these alcoves hold the base citizens of Waterdeep who joined the city guard in the defense of the city walls during a siege during some cataclysmic event. There is no reference here to the conflict or the date at which these volunteers made their sacrifice. There are 7 alcoves that we can search, so we will actually spend 7 minutes to search all of the alcoves, and we're not taking our time searching these alcoves because Monterey does feel like he is kind of running out of time. So we're going to quickly search. The skeletons in this alcove are all sized unusually. Many are small, like those of halflings or gnomes. One of the skeletons you are certain belongs to a centaur. Amongst the skeleton, you find a 10-foot length of chain. Let's make our perception check. 21. A result of 12 or higher reveals a dust-covered copper plaque engraved with the words "Unknown Youth." So we have plenty of copper plaques so far. The question is, do we want to also take the silver chain, or the length of chain? And I think that is something that we will take. So we're actually going to discard our 10-foot pole here. Alright, so alcove number 2. A nest of tiny snakes has taken over this alcove of skeletons, but they are too small to be any threat to you. Something in the alcove seems to draw them to this space. Let's make our perception check and see what we find. We got a 15, and a result of 11 or higher reveals a complex rune on one of the stones, formed from magic power. Unfortunately, we cannot read what this rune says because we do not have the language to do so. Let's look at alcove number 3. Among the skeletons here, you find what at first appears to be a stone statue of an aged human female. Upon closer inspection, you decide that it is a petrified creature, not something sculpted of stone. Make a perception check. 18. A result of 14 or higher reveals a crystal-tipped wand, arcane spellcasting focus, and a set of broken fragments that form a stone squirrel. Perhaps the statue's familiar? What? Okay, that's just kind of weird. We'll leave the wand, and we're certainly going to leave the stone squirrel. This is plain weird. Even Monterey thinks so. So let's search the alcove number 4. As you begin removing the skeletons from this alcove, you find that they don't stop at the floor level. A pit beneath the alcove contains yet more skeletons. You excavate another dozen sets of bones before you discover there is something of interest here. There is nothing of interest here. Alright, alcove number 5. 30 or more skeletons reside here. Their funerary wraps long ago rotted, the bones have begun to mingle with one another over time. Let's make our perception check. 21. A result of 8 or higher reveals a collection of 12 glass beads that must have once belonged on a necklace. A result of 13 or higher reveals an additional 6 glass beads. Each bead is worth 2 copper pieces each. So all in all, we find 12 copper beads. Let's take a look at alcove number 6. The side of this alcove has caved in. To keep the skeletons in their alcove, someone has roped them together and tied them to the hardwood planks that now buttress the ceiling. Okay, I have to admit, that's actually pretty funny. These ancient hempen bindings give way at your touch, and the bones spill out into the passageway. After searching, the only thing of interest you find is a still functional grappling hook, once part of a makeshift restraint that held the contents of this alcove all together. We're going to take that, because a grappling hook could be very beneficial. Alright, we have one more alcove to examine, so let's go ahead and take a look at alcove number 7. None of the skeletons in this alcove are whole. They sit in separate stacks arranged by bone type, their funerary wraps discarded. All the skulls stand in a line, all the finger bones piled together, and so on. Only one skeleton here is whole. Rather than having a linen wrap, this dwarven skeleton looks like someone who simply sat down in the alcove to rest and never got up. It cradles a dusty war pick in its bony arms. Let's make our perception check. 15. A result of 12 or higher reveals a stack of square coins, which is 6 silver pieces, hidden in a crack where the mortar between 2 stones has crumbled away. So we're at 20 silver pieces. Sweet. Alright, so we've investigated all of the alcoves. We're going to go to the northwest as opposed to the east because we came in from the west. So that'll take us back to our previous room. And this brings us back to the T-shaped intersection. Okay. So if we go southeast, we'll actually go into the previous room that we were just in. And if we go east, we will go back into the short passage with the 2 sarcophagi. So from there, let's go to the northeast. You approach the flimsy-looking door. It is unlocked. Opening it reveals a large room beyond. We can go east, or we can leave. I believe we're going to go east, although I think that brings us to an area we've already been to. Yes, the large room. Okay, so this brings us back to the west end. So we need to decide exactly what we want to do here. Alright, so after consulting with our map, or at least Monterey consulting with his map, there is one last area that we have really yet to fully explore, and it's something that we've just now obtained. We have not really gone through the what is it called? The snowflake emblem or whatever. The snowflake emblem door that we've uncovered way back when. So we're actually going to do a little bit of a montage. Instead of just me clicking through each of these, I'm actually just going to add some time here for the number of steps it would take him to get there and add those minutes there. As you approach the doorway, you feel a sense of unease as though the door itself is a malevolent presence. The iron bears the etched symbol of House Deepwinter, a snow-capped mountain with a large stylized snowflake above and to the left of the mountain peak. Long streaks of rust reach from the cut lines of the symbol down the bottom half of the door. The wispy lichen grows in the deepest recesses of the carving. Instead of a keyhole, the complex lock on this door has a depression that, when filled by a precisely shaped item, will deactivate the lock. So we are actually going to bypass the door by putting in the snowflake emblem thingamabob. Yay, finally! You enter a rectangular room, 50 by 30 feet in dimension. Standing sarcophagi line the walls. A few fragments of faded blue paint still cling to the parts of the wall, but most of it has eroded away, leaving the natural stone to show through. The room has a doorway on its west end and a curtain of power covering the otherwise open archway to the east end. The moment you enter the room, the lid of one of the sarcophagi falls forward and a cadaver lurches from it. The hideous thing crouches momentarily, contemplating you and working its oversized maw of fangs. Through its scraps of cloth, you can see wiry muscles tense and flex under ossified knobs of the creature's fatty flesh. This undead creature rushes you, hissing, hungry for your flesh. It will attempt to coat you in its bloody bile before trying to grab you with its long-nailed fingers, hoping to pull you in for a bite. Alright, so combat begins. We are going to roll our initiative first. 16. Let's roll for the cadaver. A 12. So that means we get to act first. We are going to, of course, take our great axe and we're going to wind it up as if we were holding a baseball bat and just basically swipe at this little punk. We rolled a 22, which does hit its AC, and we deal 8 slashing damage. Let's see, checking for any resistances. No resistances that we can see. So, unfortunately, that's not enough to put it down. And so instead, the cadaver is going to spray bloody vomit onto us. We need to make a Constitution saving throw. An 11. You must make a DC 8 Constitution saving throw or gain the poison condition. So luckily, we managed to stave that off, and that is actually going to do it for its turn. So we are going to repeat the same process. Ooh, this time we are not so good. We rolled a natural 1, which means as Monterey tries to swipe it with his great axe, he's actually going to lose control, and it's gonna go flinging off the other end of the room. To be continued.